For more than 50 years, when you think of Nepal, you think of one thing, the incredible peak of Mount Everest. The entire economy, in many ways, has been built on the backs of trekkers and summiteers. But that very success has also created a kind of strategic vulnerability. While everyone's been looking up at the mountains, a much quieter and, frankly, far more valuable opportunity has been emerging.
And this isn't some hypothetical number we've pulled out of thin air. $500 million. That's the estimated potential of a spiritual and wellness tourism sector just waiting to be properly developed. It represents a complete shift in how Nepal can think about revenue, moving away from a model of lots of people spending a little to a model of high-value clients.
So, here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the risks of Nepal's current model. Then, we'll get specific about this new high-value client. After that, we'll analyze a successful blueprint from India, pinpoint the main obstacle holding Nepal back, and finally, lay out the critical choice the country is facing.
Okay, so let's start with this idea of strategic vulnerability. Relying so heavily on trekking, which is really just a single, seasonal product, has made Nepal's tourism economy pretty fragile. It's a powerful brand for sure, but it's time to diversify the portfolio, especially when you consider that the demand for a new kind of tourism is being driven by a very, very modern problem. And that problem is corporate burnout. And listen, this isn't just about feeling tired. This is a deep, mental and spiritual exhaustion. It creates a powerful, real demand for genuine, structured restoration. And that's something completely different from what the average trekker is searching for.
And that brings us right to the $500 million client. To capture this market, you have to make a strategic pivot. You've got to shift your focus from the traditional backpacker to a whole new demographic, the Asian executive.
Let's just compare them side by side. On one hand, you've got the traditional model, someone who stays for a long time but spends very little each day. On the other, you have this new opportunity, an executive who is short on time but has plenty of cash and isn't looking for adventure, but for high-end, efficient restoration. The economic difference between these two is just massive.
The data really tells the story here. We're talking about a jump from a tourist who might spend $50 a day to one who spends $500. That's a tenfold increase in the daily yield from a single visitor. It's a game changer in terms of economic efficiency.
So, the big question is, why is Nepal so perfectly positioned for this? Well, it comes down to three key things. First, geography. It's just a short flight from the major economic hubs in Asia. Second, there's a built-in cultural resonance. Things like yoga and meditation are already deeply respected. But third, and this is the most important one, authenticity. Nepal is the source. It's the cradle of these profound philosophies.
Now, the great news is that a blueprint for success is already out there. So let's take a look at India's Kerala model. And it's important to see this not as a menu of services to copy, but as a system for building trust and generating demand that Nepal can adapt for itself.
And that's a really critical distinction to make. A lot of people hear Kerala model and they just think of Ayurveda spas. It's not that. It's an economic architecture. Its success is built on a really sophisticated system of quality control, smart marketing, and the integration of human capital.
And that entire architecture really rests on three pillars. First, they have state-mandated certification, which builds trust in the market. Second, they did some brilliant marketing that turned their monsoon off-season, a liability, into a prime asset. And third, they integrated ancient wisdom with five-star hospitality through focused training. That, right there, is the playbook.
Okay, so this brings us to the biggest challenge. The market is defined, the blueprint is clear, so what's holding Nepal back? Well, the answer is regulatory gridlock. It's the single biggest obstacle standing in the way of serious investment.
But before we really dig into that problem, it's so important to remember Nepal's core strength, its almost unfair advantage. It isn't just a place that offers wellness. It is the custodian of the spiritual source code. That authenticity is a priceless, non-replicable asset for its brand.
And yet, this is the simple and completely paralyzing question that investors are facing. If you want to build a high-end retreat that offers therapeutic services, how is that legally defined? Is it a medical facility or is it a tourism facility? The fact that there's no clear answer is an absolute nightmare for investors.
Which leads to this state of what we're calling regulatory purgatory. These potential ventures are literally trapped between the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Tourism. They're facing conflicting requirements, uncoordinated bureaucracies, and this ambiguity is the #1 reason that large-scale capital is just sitting on the sidelines. So this is the crossroads. In our final section, we're going to lay out the 3 very different futures that could come from this moment. It makes it really clear that the path forward is a matter of strategic choice, not just chance.
So here are the 3 paths. First, stagnation. The trekking model just continues, which leads to price wars and more environmental damage. Second, fragmented growth. A few brave entrepreneurs might succeed, but the sector never really takes off. It just becomes a small cottage industry. Or third, strategic national alignment, where decisive policy action unlocks that full $500 million potential and creates a brand new pillar for the national economy.
Ultimately, this is the choice Nepal faces. For decades, its identity has been defined by what people can climb. Its future, though, may depend on redefining itself by how people can heal. The decision to remain a playground for the brave, or to evolve and become a sanctuary for the weary, that choice will determine the next chapter of its entire economic story.